Good afternoon or good morning, depending on what part of the country you're in. I'm Deb Barrett, and with me is my partner, Jackie Von Tobel, and we're Soft Design Lab. Today we're going to talk about setting the perfect table. Hi, Jackie. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday, everybody. Hope you're all having a great change of seasons wherever you are, moving into fall.
That's what we're going to talk today about is that sort of niche when it comes to entertaining and tabletop and something that you might have overlooked as a revenue stream. So Jackie, why don't you start us off? I know you wanted to talk a bit about what's up on the screen with some of the DIFA tabletops.
Sure. A lot of you must know, you've seen designers are creating these fabulous tablescapes for this charity, and it has really brought the dining room back to the forefront of our design minds, where for many years now we've been seeing houses that are constructed with no formal dining room. And so formal dining has come back into play, and I think that these shows like this show sort of these fantasy adaptions of formal design, but it's really bringing back tabletop and table linens to a niche that hasn't existed before. This was a great one in last year's one in New York, and the gal played it up by doing a feminine side of design and a manly side of design in the same room. It's not two photos stuck together. That was actually the same space done completely differently on either side to show the dichotomy of men and women in design. So for this soft webinar, we're going to be talking about formal design, formal tabletop and table linens, and how you can bring that into your scope of product that you are offering to your clients. It's a very lucrative niche, and it's something that you are in a great position to provide for your client.
Absolutely. And, we're doing dynamic design for other parts of it, whether it's the window treatments or the furniture or whatever it is. So we should be considering dynamic tabletop that works in the dining room that we just designed for them.
Yeah, and you're putting together now these beautiful rooms, and we're sort of leaving them naked by not giving the client the opportunity to go through you to get their table linens and things perfectly designed for the room. We leave it up to them to go out and source these things, and a lot of times they can't find anything that's perfect or right, but they're still spending those dollars on that product. So you might as well take advantage of that and offer that as a valuable service for them, and you make the profit. Don't leave it on that table for somebody else.
I recall hearing, I believe it was Charlotte Moss talking several years ago about how organically that whole end of her business has grown. So she's designed the dining room, and then she's literally now going in and picking out tableware, doing the custom linens, doing the placemats, embroidering the monograms on the napkins, and then also going out and sourcing serveware and certain things so it all works together, and then organizing it in the pantry or the china cabinet or whatever it is for the client as part of her service. And she said that it's really has been a great lucrative part of her revenue stream.
Well, and many really big-time designers, Bunny Williams, Charles Faudré, a lot of these people really do take that very seriously, and they really take it down to the tableware, and sometimes designing their own tableware for their client. You know what your clients need.
Right. I mean, if you have a vision
style
for the room, obviously the tabletop is part of that vision.
Oh, exactly. Why not give them that opportunity? Chances are they're going to buy it from you rather than have to go out and hunt it down themselves. Most of them probably don't know that you offer that service, though. So it's important to let them know that, yeah, this is a service that I can offer for you.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to set the perfect table in 8 steps. The first thing is to really start with that sort of blank slate. It's the table. I think so often, though we're really soft designers, a lot of times we are faced with either an awkward shaped, sized, or kind of gnarly table, if you will, in the client's dining room, because it's one of those rooms that they're not in a lot, and so a lot of things get overlooked. Or it's the hand-me-down, or it was mom's table, or it was my first apartment table, or whatever it is. So you really kind of have to start there, start with that blank slate. What's that table all about? And then you have to sort of think, and these are where I think you have to ask the client, are you formal? Are you entertaining formal? Are you doing family dinners, or is it just every day? And that, how do you want to use this room?
Think about offering them two options. We need formal settings, but we need everyday products as well. So whether you're doing beautiful runner to complete tablecloth for a formal occasion, they may want just a simple set of placemats and a runner for every day. So think about offering them those different scenarios for their design.
And everything coordinates. And then also don't forget about options, because, I was just out shopping the other day and couldn't believe all the stuff that was out for Halloween and Christmas behind it. But I mean, Halloween is becoming this huge, like, decorating opportunity, if you will.
It really is, and obviously Christmas, but, spring, Easter, whatever, summer, beach themes, that kind of thing. It's very hard if you have a large table or, as Deb said, an odd-sized table or whatever, to buy off the rack, ready-made stuff that is really going to fit properly.
And if you're like I am, when you think about it, is like the week that you're having the event. So you have to take what's there, and it's not always what you want.
So your table looks great, but it may not look great in your room because it doesn't go with your room.
Right. So also think about seating. Is it, when you're thinking about that blank slate, how many people do they normally have? Ask those kinds of questions, and then talk about seating charts, how many people you can fit on it, and those kinds of things. One suggestion and a little tip I'd have for you is, for example, let's say your client has a square table that doesn't have leaves in it, or has a round table like some of these. Have a half-inch plywood, smooth used finished plywood, have a larger piece cut that you can set on top of that table to accommodate more seating. My workroom will do it for me, and they actually cover it in lining fabric, so it looks really nice and it's finished. The client keeps it, stores it, and then when she needs to turn that 54-inch table into seating for 8 versus 6, she just plops that plywood right on top of it.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Because we never have enough room.
You can never have enough room. And that also happens, I think, as they move through the life stage and their kids start bringing home their girlfriends, boyfriends, and significant others. All of a sudden, you were always 8 or 10 for dinner. Now all of a sudden you're 16, and you're like, oh my God, how am I going to get everybody seated?
Exactly. You could also do that for a pool table.
Oh,
and make it into a really big dining table. And use your pool table room if you have that as your dining room for the day.
Awesome. I love that idea. Lay the foundation with the right tablecloth, whether it's going to be to the floor or it's going to be draped down. It all starts with the right tablecloth and the right size tablecloth. And not everybody knows the sort of quote-unquote rules are when it comes to purchasing a tablecloth. So typically your tablecloth drop should be a minimum of 6 inches on all sizes. So the first thing you've got to do with that blank slate is you've got to measure that table and see what size it is so that you can make sure your client is getting the proper size. Also, historically, the longer the drop, the more formal the occasion. To the floor, very formal. A 12-inch drop, a more formal occasion than maybe, say, a brunch versus a Thanksgiving dinner. This kind of gives you an idea on table size. And by the way, when you're speccing tablecloths with your workroom, you should always have a rolled hem on it or a handkerchief hem. You shouldn't have them basically serge it or satin stitch it around. It definitely needs to be hemmed, I think.
Well, you need the weight of the hem to have it hang properly.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can see when you buy ready-made stuff, sometimes it sort of like has a stiffness where it doesn't really drape around the table.
Mm-hmm. Right. And remember, if you're having to get into larger size cloths, if you're doing custom cloths, is don't ignore a couple of sources. Companies that do wide width goods that maybe are faux polyesters that look like faux silks or whatever that are 118-inch width goods, they're fabulous for tablecloths.
Absolutely, because you don't want a seam running down the middle
Right.
or the sides of your table.
And if you do have to do that, maybe you're speccing a cloth that has some custom detailing to it, or you're placing the seams instead of, like she said, one that's going right down the middle.
Right.
Don't have the workroom just assume they're going to place their seams for you, because they might not.
And bordering works really well for that.
Right.
And yeah, here we're talking about banding, but you can, you're using traditional 54-inch width goods, you can just put a nice big thick banding border around there.
Right.
And banding is also a great way to use that as a hem because it adds extra weight,
Mm-hmm.
On the edges. It adds a great detail to it, and you can make simple table linens really look fancy. I love this Greek key one. I love it the
I
way
love
it
that.
laces down the side
I
for the
love that.
outside, so it's not going to blow off the table. So that's a functional and also a beautiful detail to it. And, just make sure if you are having table linens done, I would suggest that you pre-wash all of your fabric.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you're doing any kind of color banding, make sure it's color fast, make sure that's not going to bleed onto the rest of the linen.
And by the way, speaking of that, natural fibers always, and sheer, this is a really cute one with the sheer fabrics. It does set that sort of elegant but relaxed tone that's sort of sometimes called shabby chic. There's a reason why historically we've used linen fibers for tablecloths, your grandma's or your mother's linen tablecloth. The more you wash them and the more you use them, the luster develops to it, and they actually probably look and feel better when they're 50 years old and had use than when they're brand new out of the package.
Absolutely, and they clean very well, and you can get stains out of them, and
they take dye really well if you're looking, if you're looking for a specific color. So look at linens when you're looking at it. Love these appliques and these stenciling. What a great idea to stencil, especially if you're kind of a DIYer and enjoy that.
I know, isn't that beautiful? The one, the applique on the right is available through Neiman Marcus, but you can buy those wholesale to the trade. But stenciling, really is a great option if you're handy and want to do that or have an artist do it for you.
So we've got our tablecloth, and that's sort of the foundation, but the whole idea, I think, is layering. I mean, come on, we're all about fabric and and layering and adding drama and texture or whatever. So think about adding a contrast runner. Typically it'll go down the side. The typical way is lengthwise down the table, down the center. And if you're having a centerpiece and it's going to be there when you're not entertaining, then that does make sense. But I love the idea of doing it here horizontally, and they sort of become placemats. If in this setting, you can do them crisscross if you're on a round table. Again, and by the way, you're selling more fabrics or whatever. You can do reversibles. You can add cording and detail. Runners are great ways to get rid of those little odds and ends that maybe, you have left over from the workroom that you can, sell twice.
And what I love about runners, too, is that you've just sold your client a very expensive dining room table. A lot of times they don't want to cover it up. but they do need to protect it. And so if they don't want full tablecloths, you can suggest a scenario like that where you're using multiple runners so that you're showing off the beauty of the table, but you're protecting it at the same time.
Right. This is Kim Siebert, table runner. If you're not familiar with her, this is a source that needs to get on your radar. She does a lot of beading, a lot of interesting things. There's cutouts and shapes. This happens to be her sort of coral nautical theme. Really interesting table linens, particularly if you're working with a client who is entertaining for special occasions. This is in that sort of seasonal options. This is where to put your money into, this one stunning piece. As you can see, this beaded table runner, and then she has cocktail napkins and napkin rings and cabochel placemats, and it's amazing stuff.
And this picture, I mean, all of her collections are like this, but what I love about this picture, it does show you breadth of product that you can offer. All these different things can be made out of fabric. The little cocktail napkins instead of coasters, everything like that. But honestly, her table runners, if I had a formal beach house, I would hang them on the wall. I mean, they're works of art. They're really beautiful. So kind of think out of the box when you're looking at her product offering, because I think there's a lot of different things that you can do with it. Her napkin rings would make absolutely killer, like put it over a tab on drapery panels
Yep.
or something, or tie backs. I mean, they're like jewelry for the home. It's
Yep.
really beautiful stuff.
She's definitely a source you want on your radar. So here's a
Yeah.
couple of guidelines when you're talking about table runners. And usually a table runner is 1/3 of your table width. When you're buying stock, you're not always going to find the right size table runner.
And table runners also don't need to be square. They don't need to have a square end. You know, get creative. That's where you're going to differentiate your product from what they can find in the store.
Then the second thing is about building a centerpiece. And again, think out of your box with the centerpieces. I love, the fruits and the veggies and everything kind of mixed in here. This is where you get to go in and kind of dig around in the client's sideboards or wherever and say, what do you have out there and bring something that you might not have expected and put it on the tabletop, and it can make a stunning centerpiece. Then it's about creating the place setting. I don't know about you, but in formal dining rooms, there's something about, even if you're not entertaining, that it's partially or a set table. I just like it. I'm
like
drawn
when
to it.
there's just like chargers. Don't put the
Yeah.
glassware and everything out because it looks like you're staging a model home. So I
Right.
love to see like chargers and then maybe just the little salt shakers and stuff and your candlesticks and things.
Yeah,
I think it
there's
looks really
something
cool.
about it that just that's interesting. But the idea is to create the place setting, and what better way, as Jackie just mentioned, with choosing a charger or a placemat. I have a round table at home, and I have to tell you, there are very few placemats out there that are either round or half moons or whatever that are pretty, that work at the table. I have to have mine done custom because they're, you can get the rectangular ones, which are great, but if you do have an oval table or a round table, this is a difficult thing to find.
You can find chargers, but not around,
Right.
fabric placemat. And you have a beautiful table, so you want to show that table
Sure.
off. You don't want to have a full thing on there. So that's a great way to, offer that.
And it speaks to that transition between formal and everyday, and you can certainly go from contemporary to nature-inspiring wood, these wooden placemats, or this is a bamboo, I believe, to more formal looks. And there are certain ways to set the table. A client might not be aware of this, and it's always nice to put together a little brochure pamphlet for them and how to set the table, where do all the pieces of your serveware and tableware go. Knives, forks, and all that kind of stuff. I always use cloth napkins.
And then you also sell them their Christmas napkins.
And right, exactly.
And they're seasonal.
And don't forget to sell the monogram napkins.
Yes.
Before you know it, you've bought 6 yards of fabric for a napkin. So definitely always tell them you need to use cloth napkins. Here are some napkin sizes. I'm a big believer in the larger formal, the 22s and 24-inch squares versus the 14s. And that's another thing. In ready-mades, you cannot get a really nice size nib.
Very true. Although this gal, Julian Medea, I think that they offer all of these in different sizes. And they are to the trade, so you can look up their website.
Right. And another one that does that is Julia B. Linens is another source to get into. She's also to the trade. And then if you got to have napkins, you got to know how to do all the funky folds. Best place to go is napkinfoldingguide.com. It's step by step. You pick one, you can do the folded, napkin on the charger if you want to partially set the table. There's just lots of ways to do it. And the other thing is when you're trying to sell cloth napkins is sometimes it's always fun to reference sort of the history of napkin and napkin folding, the whole idea that in Rome, the dinner guests brought their own napkins because then they carried home the leftovers in it or whatever. But just those little tips, it's kind of just romances the whole thing.
I have relatives that still do that, I think.
I know. Well, for those of us that are Downton Abbey, people, we've seen them fold a lot of napkins in the series too. But I mean, there's something really, I don't know, satisfying about that, right? Cleaning the silver, having the napkins. Then 7, start layering things in, whether it's when you're doing an entertaining, the napkin ring, the place card, the menu if you're doing something really formal. Even if it's a brunch that you're setting up on the table, it's nice to have what the menu is. as your guests are coming through. Or I love the fact that they use these are thumbprint goblets
Candle and the,
in the candle and the greenery at each
mhm.
place. We have, I'm a glassware collector also, so next time I'm taking that little
I
item.
think it's very, very nice. If you think about this more as a business niche for yourself and put together packages or package deals for your clients,
Mm-hmm.
and you can include those little tidbits, just really enhances your scope of services and makes you more valuable to your client.
Right. And some of you probably are already doing seasonal decorating, particularly with Christmas. So then, as Jackie said, build out that entertaining package, not just that decorating of the Christmas tree and setting all the accessories up for the holidays. Build her a package and you're putting all that stuff in a tub so she can pull it out when she's entertaining at Christmas and get out all her tabletop. This is a great place to use that leftover yardages and trims, as we mentioned before. Love these little monogram napkin rings and what is it, probably 6 inches of fabric.
I think that's a brilliant idea. I
do.
absolutely love that.
I do
If
too.
you've got an embroidering sewing machine or whatever, or you send it out to your local monogrammer.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that's personalized that is unique to the client has a much larger value to that person.
Right. And even if this is a referral gift, I shouldn't say a referral gift, but this is your gift to her if she's bought a tabletop package from you. I mean, this isn't going to cost you a lot of money to do, but it's certainly going to have that sort of personal touch to it. Don't forget about the outdoors. Lots of entertaining happening outdoors.
Outdoor living is so big now. I mean, in certain parts of the country, people are living more outdoors than they are indoors. I just had a chance to experience Deb's outdoor living, which was very nice at your house, and we had some beautiful evenings out on her porch, and just brought to mind for me just how lovely it can be outside when you bring fine design to the outdoors. So that's definitely something that your clients need.
And keep in mind where it is outdoors, because it does open up a couple of challenges with wind, and so you got to have weights on the tablecloth and things like that.
You are going to use things outside, even on the inside, though. We would do this for clients in their kitchens for their everyday stuff for the kids, for, chair pads, laminating your fabrics. Number one, it does add extra weight to the fabric and keeps it from blowing off the table, but you've got dust and dirt and stuff, so if you're leaving it outside set up, maybe you have a semi-enclosed space, you can just go out there and wipe it right down and you're ready to go. You don't have to worry about if it gets a little bit of water on it or whatever. So take advantage of those services that are available to you out there.
And one source I want to mention that is thinking about outdoor is Dransfields and Ross, where they've just introduced a whole new Sunbrella line of decorative pillows. We've talked about it before, but part of that was outdoor entertaining and their table linens in Sunbrella. And there were some really cool placemats and really interesting napkins and things. So look into them because they are to the trade. And don't forget about those ready-made sources out there. This is fair.
And speaking of Sunbrella too, that is a great source for any kind of table linens. A lot of their stuff used to be too soft, but now they have really nice pliable stuff. It's going to wash up beautifully. It's going to last longer, be very, very durable. So if you have a home with kids and pets and things like that, you may suggest that to your client as a way to go to be a little, last a little bit longer and easier to clean up.
Another great source is Serena and Lily. We've mentioned Kim Sieber, but I had to put this in with Chinoiserie becoming so top of mind. This is one of her placemats, it's killer.
Yeah.
So don't forget about those. And then also,
yes, don't forget the table pad for sure, because this is something that should be worked into the price of the table that you're selling the client. Spending a lot of money on that table, and they need to protect it. And so this is something that I would suggest you just add on as an option for them when they purchase a dining table, that you go ahead, price out the custom table mat for them, and then add that in there as an option. 9 times out of 10, they're going to purchase it because they want to protect that investment that they've just made. You can also make these in your workroom and make fabric ones, felt ones, table covers. One of the advantages of this is that the tablecloth, when you do put the tablecloth over it, it drapes nicely. It doesn't slide all over the table if you have a really slick surface or if you have a glass top or things like that. So keep those in mind and really try and upsell that, and it's a good profit maker for you.
Table pad companies are, allow designers to be dealers, and they'll send you a set of samples to show you their different qualities of pads and tops
Mm-hmm.
and things, and it's just this little, sample kit, very much like selling blinds and shades, if you will, and you work through wholesale. To end it all, here are just a few household items that you might want to be selling to your client, or you might want to put together their little quote-unquote entertaining or tabletop checklist, and you can offer some of these things to them and maybe work up a little strategy checklist for them, whether it's napkins, tea towels, everyday tablecloths, table runners, buffet runners, center circles, placemats. Could be very lucrative aspect of our industry. So definitely we encourage all of you to look into this niche.
Yeah, don't leave this for them to buy in retail. You're the expert. Put that into your bag of tricks and sell it to them, because you're just leaving that money on the table, on the
Right.
dining table.
Thanks so much, and watch your inbox for the next information coming to you from Take 10 in email, and in 2 weeks from now, our next Take 10 live webinar. Thanks, everybody. Happy weekend.
Thanks. Enjoy the fall weather.
Bye, Jackie.
Bye.